All right. Good morning, Forest Oak. Happy Wednesday to you. We are in our another lead lesson for this morning. I am Mr. Muhammad, and we're going to be talking about habits today. How to form good habits. All right. This lesson is a Be Well 365 essential lesson, focusing on healthy coping strategies. Our learning objectives will be students will gain an understanding of how habits are created and their purpose. Students will learn how to end unhealthy habits and how to create new healthy habits. What is a habit? Things to think about as you talk about habits. Are all habits bad? How does something become a habit? Take this time to pause the video and discuss in your groups, in your classes, these questions. Are all habits bad? And how does something become a habit? Now that you've had the opportunity to talk about habits, let's view this video and learn some more.
Smana is like very outgoing, compassionate. She has lot of friends and she always has a smiling face.
She is very smart girl. She was pretty good at playing piano. One day she was sitting on the dining table and doing.
Typically, we are harder on others than ourselves when it comes to bad habits. They can be annoyances like someone who starts cracking their knuckles right next to you, or a friend of yours who you love very much but who constantly drops the word like into like every other sentence. Hey, but you've got one too. Everyone has at least one bad habit that they can't shake. Or can they? Welcome to Wellcast. This week, we took another viewer suggestion from Frantic Cow, who wrote in asking for a video on breaking bad habits. So today, you guessed it, we're going to examine why it's so darn difficult to give up chowing down on junk food or chowing down on your fingernails. We've also got a 4-step method for overcoming your biggest vice. Are you ready? First and foremost, how do bad habits even form? Studies by the National Institute of Health point to 2 main reasons. The first reason is repetition. If you do something often enough, say you twirl your pencil during class, your brain decides it can stop wasting precious neurons thinking about it. So it checks out and goes on vacation. You could be twirling your pencil through AP English, social studies, algebra, and trig without even thinking about it. The other way bad habits are formed is through positive reinforcement, which sounds like a really good thing, but it can be dangerous. Let's talk about that energy drink that you insist on sucking back when you're up late studying. Gives you a nice boost of energy, and it helps you get through to the end of that mind-numbingly boring paper you're writing on Chaucer. But the reason why this kind of habit is hard to break is that a nice surge of energy at 11 p.m. is an enjoyable feeling. And enjoyable feelings usually result in your brain releasing dopamine. This is partly why people often crave things that aren't even enjoyable for them anymore. The brain is jonesing for dopamine. But don't worry, my habitual compadres. Human beings are pretty amazing at changing and adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to obliterate that bad habit in 4 easy steps. Pause and print this sheet at watchwellcast.com. Step 1. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Write down the bad habit you're trying to quit. Start simple, choose just one. Step 2. Learn to avoid your triggers. Take some time to think about the things that really make you crave doing your bad habit. If biting your nails is your vice, your triggers might be that last-minute quiz. Oh no, I gotta pay my electric bill, or how much money do I have in my account for rent? List these triggers in section 2 of your worksheet. Next to these triggers, write a list of ways you can avoid them. For example, read your syllabus every week, or Make sure that you plan for automatic deductions for your electric bill. Step 3, substitute your bad habits for not so bad habits. Basically, you want to teach your brain by repetition to learn a new habit. So, if you tend to bite your nails when you're stressed and alone in your living room, stock your refrigerator with carrots and celery so that you can reach for something else to chew on when you're stressed out. Write a substitution next to every trigger on section 3 of your worksheet. Step 4, gather your army. You do not have to do this alone. Enlist your friends to help you defeat this bad habit. Start by telling them that you're planning on eliminating this bad habit, and you need their help. Just the simple act of letting them in on this battle that you're waging is a step in the right direction. Remember, your friends can be bodyguards. They'll stand between you and your brain. Tell them to police you. If they see you reaching for those nails to bite, give them the permission to remind you of your mission. Or even slap your hand. Whatever you want. All right, guys, let's recap. Today, you learned 4 steps for beating your bad habit. You decided which habit you wanted to kick. You figured out your triggers for this bad habit, and you decided on ways to avoid and replace these triggers with healthier alternatives. If all else fails, you learn to enlist your friends in the fight.
Tweet us at WatchWellcast. Email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com.
All right. After watching that video, what did you think? What are some habits that you can change? Have you ever tried to change a habit, but you were unsuccessful? Take some time and talk about the challenges behind changing bad habits in your LEAD class right now. Teachers, please pause the video. Did you know that it takes 21 days to create a new habit? Habits can't be changed overnight. Here are a few suggestions that may help. Number 1, write down your goal. There is magic in the written word when it applies to you. Experts recommend stating your goal in positive terms, such as, I want to be lean and physically fit, instead of, I've got to get this flabby body out there, huffing and puffing. So begin with writing down as a positive goal the habit you will change. Number 2, list your reasons for changing or eliminating your habit. Writing it down will force you to think out in specific terms what the habit represents in your life and the meaning you believe your life will hold for you upon changing the habit. This will also help with your commitment toward taking positive action. Number 3, find substitute routines. For example, if you are changing eating habits and you have identified a particularly difficult time of the day when eating habits are poor, create an activity, a new routine for that time. Number 4, talk to yourself. Tell yourself you're making progress. Remind yourself that you are moving closer to your goal. Talk to yourself throughout the day about how you are going to avoid triggers that can get you off track and make healthy substitutes. Number 5, recruit helpers for support. Explain to them why you are making this change. Ask for their support. Their support may be needed encouragement. Number 6, be prepared for people who may sabotage your change. Be assertive and tell them what they are doing. Make sure you enlist your friends to help and let them know this is something you're doing for yourself and that you have no time for them sabotaging your efforts. Now it's your turn. Think about a habit that you would like to change. Here are some examples: biting your nails, procrastinating, cursing, eating too much candy or bad snacks, These are just a few ideas, but make a plan to see how you can make changes in the next 21 days. We talked about a few suggestions to help change some bad habits. Hopefully, you have picked one to work on. Here are a few more helpful hints to reach your goal. Start with a small change. When you start small, it's easier to sustain and build. When you start too big, it's easier to fall back into the old habits. Sometimes when you start out too big, you become frustrated or anxious. And then you start to think, this is never going to work, and you give up on your actions. So always start small. Know your triggers. You have to identify those things that make you want to follow that bad habit. For example, when I'm upset, I may eat really bad foods. Then I have to learn how to recognize when I am upset and come up with a better solution to handle it. At this time, students and teachers, take a minute to talk about possible triggers or even your own. Teachers, please pause the video. Remember that you're not perfect. Nobody is. So you're going to fail at times, but don't get mad at yourself. Pick yourself up and start over again. This can be a chance for you to learn more about yourself. Remember, when you stretch yourself, you become better. Stay positive. Make your self-talk positive. Talk about what you have done right and don't focus on what you've done wrong. Look for the good in all situations. You can also affirm yourself with daily positive affirmations. Say positive things about yourself to yourself. Now you're going to view this video and see how it relates to changing bad habits. After the video, be sure to talk about it in your class.
There's a pattern to genius. There's a method behind the magic. I always tell people my inspiration was my desperation, and I don't do this to impress you. I do this to express to you what's possible, because the truth is, you could do this too. And it's really about supercharging your brain so you can learn anything faster. And
how can science help us to understand our habits, create new ones, and change bad habits such as smoking with a simple formula anyone can use? In the early 90s, researchers at MIT did a series of experiments to understand habits. They placed rats in a simple T-shaped maze with chocolate at one end. When a loud click sounded, the rats were let loose and began sniffing out the chocolate. The researchers noticed that the rats' brains exploded with activity as they slowly searched the maze. As the experiment was repeated hundreds of times, a series of changes slowly emerged. The rats started to move through the maze quicker and quicker, and at the same time their brain activity decreased. As the rats started to learn where the chocolate would be, it no longer had to choose which way to turn, and so the decision-making centers of the brain went quiet. After a while, the brain structures related to memory became less active, as the rat had internalized how to get to the chocolate to such an extent that it hardly had to think at all. The process in which the brain converts a series of actions into an automatic routine is called chunking, and is vital to how habits are formed. The brain does this to save itself effort, so that it can be used for more important things. However, it's important for the brain to know when it can use habits or when it needs to be more alert. To do this, it relies on a cue. When the rat is placed in a maze, it doesn't know where it is. There could be a predator waiting outside ready to pounce. But when it hears the familiar click sound and the maze is opened, it knows that it can go into automatic mode and use the "find the delicious chocolate" habit. If, however, instead of the click sound it hears a meow, it knows to use a different habit. This process is known as the habit loop. First, there is a cue, letting our brains know which habit to use and to go into automatic mode. Then comes the routine. And finally, the reward, which tells our brains whether a particular habit loop is worth remembering. Over time, the habit loop becomes more and more automatic. So if habits are simply a matter of creating a cue, completing a routine, and then getting a reward, why then is it so difficult to create a new habit and stick to that New Year's resolution to eat healthier or exercise more? The reason why it can be so difficult is because to make the cues and rewards work, craving is required. To explain this, we can look at the work of neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz, who conducted a series of experiments to understand how rewards work on a neurochemical level. A monkey was placed in a room in front of a computer monitor. Whenever shapes appeared on the screen, the monkey was taught to pull a lever which would release a drop of blackberry juice down a tube and into his mouth. Schultz monitored the activity of the monkey's brain as it carried out the activity. Predictably, whenever the blackberry juice was released, the monkey's brain activity would spike, suggesting that he was experiencing pleasure. The experiment was repeated again and again until a habit was formed. However, as the experiment was repeated and the habit became stronger, Schultz noticed something unexpected. The monkey's brain began anticipating the blackberry juice. When the shapes appeared on the screen, brain activity spiked as though the monkey was experiencing pleasure before any juice had been released. In other words, the cue of seeing the shapes on the screen produced a craving for the juice. This is what makes habits so powerful and why it can be so difficult to create new habits such as exercising more or stop bad habits such as smoking. It's not enough to simply create a cue, routine and reward loop such as putting your running shoes out ready for the morning, going for a run, feeling good from the endorphin rush and sense of achievement. You need to repeat the loop enough times so that you start craving those good feelings you get after exercising. Otherwise, the habit won't stick. So how can we change an existing habit that we don't want anymore, such as reaching for that unhealthy mid-morning snack? As habits never really disappear, we have to keep the existing cue and reward, but insert a new routine. We can change almost any behaviour if we follow this formula. First, we must work out what the cues and rewards are. So, if you want to stop snacking at work, ask yourself what the reward is that you are looking for. Is it to satisfy your hunger, or is it because you're bored and are looking for a distraction? If you are simply looking for a brief diversion, replace the old routine with a new one which will achieve the same reward, such as going for a quick walk or having a chat with a colleague. Although this method of changing the routine has proven to be effective, it will often fail when the stresses of life get too much. This is why people who have previously quit smoking will start again when life gets too demanding. Researchers have found that replacement habits only become durable in times of difficulty when belief is involved. For a habit to permanently change, you have to believe that change is possible, and most often, that belief only emerges with the help of a like-minded group, community, or in some cases, simply a supportive friend. It's not easy to create new habits or change existing ones, but by understanding how habits work and using the support of a community who share your goals, you can greatly increase the odds of succeeding.
All right. Pretty interesting stuff. Great video. All right. Before we end, let's go back and review. Remember, here are some suggestions that can help you change your habits. Write down your goal. Make sure that you review it. And also list reasons for changing or eliminating your habit. Write down in specific terms what that habit represents in your life and the meaning you believe your life will hold upon changing the habit. Find substitute routines. If you want to change eating habits, you have to identify a particularly difficult time of the day when eating habits are poor and create a new activity, a new routine. Talk to yourself. No, you won't be going crazy. Talk to yourself. It's good. Make sure you remind yourself that you are moving closer to your goal. Recruit helpers for support. Explain to them why you're making this change and ask for their support. Your family and friends are always great helpers. Make sure that they are there to encourage you. And lastly, be prepared for people who may sabotage your change. Sometimes even your best friends may have a different idea of what they should do or what you should do. Be assertive and tell them what you're doing and why it's important to you. Before closing, and before you have an opportunity in LEAD to have some more discussions, let's do a little quick pop quiz. True or false? Habits can be positive or bad. True or false? Number 2, a bad habit takes 21 years to get rid of. Number 3, don't ever get help with removing bad habits. People are just going to make fun of you. And number 4, the most important factor in getting rid of a bad habit is your belief. So now that we've all reviewed the lesson for today, teachers, this is an opportunity to have a group discussion regarding the second video and the information in this video. Reflect on the activities and what they learned. Close this lesson out by having students share a bad habit that they will try to end or a positive habit that they will begin, and what are the steps that they will utilize. Thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for watching this video. And I hope you have a wonderful day.